Sorry, I'm just trying to get rid of, I've got something I don't want to see. Never mind. So I just wanted to start by telling you a little about myself. I think most of us think that property lawyers are almost the enemy. I find it particularly hurtful because all I want to do is help people, and I can't do that if people are against me and thinking that I'm trying to stop them moving or trying to stop them buying a property. It's very rare I try and stop people buying a property, and the last time I did, the person bought it anyway, and now I'm having to deal with the fallout from it. But there you go. So I'm a property lawyer and I'm an estate planner, and I've been doing that for over 30 years. I think when I did this sign, I was doing it for 30 years. It's a bit of a while ago now. I was a partner in a law firm. I was one of the first. I'm not actually a solicitor. I'm a chartered legal executive. And I was one of the first in the country to become a partner in a law firm when the law changed. Now I'm a consultant in a dispersed law firm. That's sort of posh for saying we haven't got an office and we work all over the country, and there's quite a few of us. So even if it isn't my discipline, there'll be somebody in the firm. I think there's about 150. There'll be somebody who does do what you need advice on. So more than happy to help anybody with that. I'm also a property investor. I've got 17 properties, do HMOs, single lets and developments. I've got a couple of plots at the moment that are in the planning process, planning to sell them. One of them on for planning uplift, and the other one going to develop because it's adjacent to one of our HMOs. So property law is a system. You need to learn the system, but you need someone who does know the law. So if you know where the system's going, and you know where you're going, then it will make it easier for you. When I talk to new people, they get very mixed up with things like exchange and completion. They're very different things, and it's really important to understand the progression of how that works. Your relationship with your solicitor is important. As I said when I started out, you know, it is really, really important that you have a relationship with the solicitor, because you need that person to understand where you're going and not see them as something you should keep secrets from. So I'm a great fan of Dr. Demartini, and he says the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your questions. Well, I'd say the quality and the results from your lawyer are determined by the quality of your instructions. If you don't, your lawyer will do what you instruct them to do, not what you expect them to do. Don't expect them to be mind readers. They just aren't, and they do what they do because it's what they do in the majority of cases. So as property investors, we're different. If you want to be treated different, you need to act different. You need to make sure your lawyer knows exactly what you're doing. I looked up, so I didn't do the tax year to this tax year because I think it's very false property readings, but there were 300,000 property transactions in the last so-called normal year that we had. 65,000 of them were the purchase of buy-to-lets. That's just over 21%. If somebody did something in your job for 21% of the time, would you remember that? If the other 80% were doing something, would you treat them differently? You'd treat them on the as the other 80%. So please, even if you want to be treated differently, jump up and down, talk to your lawyer, talk to them as though you need their help, that you're their friend. People who ring me up and tell me they think they know what they want in a certain way can be very difficult, because it can be really difficult to say to them, actually, that doesn't work, mainly because they're not wanting to listen. They've already made up their mind, because their attitude is that they know where they're going. And as property investors, you probably do know where you're going better than your solicitor. You need to educate them if you've got an ordinary solicitor, if you like. I would hope you wouldn't have to educate me if I was acting for you. But I can remember that in not too distant past when I didn't, and people would say, oh, I'm going to do this. And no, you can't do that, because we spend our life sorting out things that go wrong, not things that go right. Nobody ever comes to us for anything that goes right. So bear in mind, if you go to your solicitor and say you're going to do all this stuff, like you're going to have an exchange delayed completion, they're going to be saying, no, you don't want to do that, because they're afraid that you will come back and say to you, you shouldn't have let us do it. So that's the main thing. You need to understand the burden that's been loaded on the lawyer by the lender. So the lender's handbook, parts 1 and 2 have to be read in conjunction with each other. And when they first came out, which is 20-ish years ago, it was supposed to stop there being individual instructions. I think we gave up on that after about 2 years. And part 2s were introduced, because every lender has different requirements. I've included that, and I'm going to put at the end of the presentation, I will put all the links that you see as links here in the chat box, which will allow you to use them directly. So don't worry about trying to take them down. They will be in the chat box later. So there's another version of the Lender's Handbook produced by the Building Societies Association, and that's that one. And basically it is everything that a lender can do from it. When it opens, it tells them how to open the file, and it goes back to it goes down to how to close the file, and everything they have to do in between. What you need to remember is the lender imposes that burden on your lawyer. If your lawyer doesn't do what the lender says, or you tell your lawyer not to do what the lender says, your lawyer is required by those instructions to refuse to act for the lender. And once they do that, all hell will break loose, because they'll want to know why. And whilst you can plead client privilege, it is deadly obvious why. Because you've asked them to do something that is either illegal or immoral or fraudulent. Well, that's illegal. So when you ask your lawyer to do something, bear that in mind. They are going to be referring to this information. And if it says they can't do it, they won't be doing it. I'm known to say to my clients when they say something like that, we haven't had this conversation, and can we not have it again? And generally most people understand what I mean. There have been a few that don't, but and there have been a few clients who told me that their mortgage is nothing to do with me, and they think that the money is going to be sent to them. So if you think about that, that seems quite naive to property investors, but that is the level that some people are. So please, check this handbook out if you are going to borrow from a certain lender and there are things that you don't particularly want to tell your solicitor, but you check to see what's going on. But I'm not encouraging you to commit mortgage fraud, I should say. So the stress, the control at the pace of the transaction is what your relationship with your lawyer can do for you. Stress is man-made. I think we all know that. It's the way our reactions go towards it. But as property investors, do we have an advantage? I tend to think we do, because we shouldn't be emotionally involved, and we shouldn't be getting like this lady who I would say is buying her new home. If we get like that over properties, then that, I think, tends to lend us to spending more money. That's me speaking as a property investor rather than as a lawyer. And I've had property investors that I've acted for who, when put under pressure by estate agents, have just said, well, I'm not going to do that then, goodbye. And the whole chain has collapsed. So yes, you do have an advantage if you are careful how you deal with things. Also, you are generally, as a property investor, at the beginning or the end of a chain. Therefore, the rate you move means that you can speed or slow down the chain. Now, slowing down is really easy. I'm doing it on a matter at the moment, which is quite difficult when you've got a very persistent estate agent. But thankfully, the buyer's solicitor, the seller's solicitor lost some inquiries, so that's helped me. But all of this is down to having a good relationship with my client. I've known her several years, and she's been truthful with me, and that's been really important. I know exactly what's going on, and it's allowed me to do that. So your solicitor, they need to have your back. They need to make sure your interests are covered. And this is where part of the talking to your lawyer, and when I said earlier about training your lawyer, some of this is what you need to make sure it happens. So you ask your lawyer to register a double L restriction. It will ensure that your property doesn't get nicked by a tenant, or at least it will move the liability to that onto a solicitor. They will have to make sure that they know it's you who's signing the forms, and they'll have to give a certificate to do that. So it actually makes people think about it. The other thing you and your solicitor should be responsible for is the updating of your addresses for service. So they're the addresses the land registry have on the office copies, on the land registry entries. They must be addresses that are up to date. Now, this is where the 20-80% thing comes in. Most people, their address for service is going to be the house. Automatic pilot puts in the house. You do not want an address for service. You can suddenly lose your garden because you haven't responded to the land registry. So if you haven't checked your addresses for service lately and you're a property investor, make sure you do it as soon as possible. And also sign up for the notification service, which says that people are doing something on your properties. So it's called Property Alert. And I had forgotten about it until earlier this week, and I was submitting to remove a restriction from a friend's property. And I pushed the button at 7 o'clock yesterday evening, I think it was. And at 2 minutes past 7, I got a text from him that said, "Is this you? Somebody's trying to register something." And I went, "Yes, it's me." And it occurred to me, I forget about it. It's a set and forget thing. So please, if you haven't done it, do it for all your properties and check that out. One of the things I would suggest is, if you're rent-to-renting, you should be able to set up property alerts on those, so you can watch if your landlord's doing something, so that you protect your interests that way. It's a free service, so it's well worth having a look at. So I wanted to give you a list of things you should talk to your lawyer about that would allow you to make sure that you get things doing, so that they get the picture of how you are. So, one, talk about your plans for the property. If you're going to extend the property, if you're going to turn it into an HMO, if you're going to turn it into 2 flats, any of those things and many others, there might be some sort of covenant against it. There might be something on the local search about it. A good example I have, which isn't applicable to us, but is applicable to other people. I had a client chew my ear off a good few years ago now, because he wanted to keep his caravan in the back garden, and there was a covenant to say he couldn't. Now, I had no idea, but he thought it was the first thing I should tell him. So as that as an illustration is, if you're going to do something, don't expect your lawyer to know what you're doing. Talk to them about it. Ask them if there's any reasons. I would suggest, rather than doing that on the telephone, you should do that in an email, or you should talk to them on the telephone and then follow it up with an email, so that you can ask them specifically to answer those questions, and then chase up if they haven't answered them. They should, of course, answer them, but never say it always happens. Talk to them about the goals for your business. So one of the reasons I put that in is, if you're building a big portfolio, it's good for them to know that, because it will make them think about you. Where you want to be in a position where something comes in on one of your matters and it goes to the top of the pile, because they know you're going to pay them immediately, you're not going to shout at them, and they know where you're going, so they will then speak for you. So because they know you, if it comes in, if something comes in and you've forgotten to tell them, they will see your name on it and think, oh, yeah, this is the next one, and then potentially phone you up and say, I've got another one, are you buying another one? And seeing, and that will allow you to get ahead of the game in that situation. Tell them about the types of property you're looking for. If a chain collapses, they've got stressed, like that poor lady in the picture earlier, on their mind, clients on their hands. If it can do you and them a favour, if you can take that property, or you can take the property that's in there, because it happens on numerous occasions. Or I know a client who might buy it, and you ring them up and say, this has just happened, might be a good deal to be had, are you interested? And then you can take that down, either go via the agents or via your clients, especially if it's going to be, they want a deal, because often they'll be prepared to, because they're in love with the house. So you might get a good deal out of that as well. And your continuity planning. So part of my business, as most people know, is estate planning, and one of the things I do as part of that is planning for the continuity of the business. The continuity of the business is important. If you end up having to have an operation suddenly, heart attack, stroke, all those horrible things that none of us want to think about, if you've talked about how you want that to work, and you have a will with the company that you're with, you can get that carried on. A will and or a lasting power of attorney, all those things can be carried on, yes, at a cost, but at least you won't come to, if you've been ill, to discover that your business is in ruins. And your exit strategy, because that could have effect on what you're going to do with the property. So if you're going to if you want to get out of it in a certain way, tell them that. Ask them if there's any reason that they think that won't happen. Because, there are areas, I live in Norfolk. I don't practice so much in Norfolk anymore, but there are areas of Norfolk that I can tell you exactly what's happening, where it's going to happen, because I've worked there so long. I know where you'd buy, I know where you wouldn't buy, I know where roads are going to be built, and it just, you know, the solicitors pick all that information up if you're purchasing that locality, and if not, they can be prompted to pick the brains of the lawyer that you're that you're buying from. So that's always worth a try as well. This is a bit for my other business, but you know, saving yourself a whole lot of trouble. If I said that the questions I get asked most about and the situations I need to help most people through are JVs gone wrong because they haven't got adequate documents. They've done it on a handshake, and I could talk about JVs and everything that goes wrong with them for all night. But just to say that saving yourself a whole lot of trouble is getting a good JV agreement and all your personal security documents, which I've listed there. So really important to have insurance, because you could end up with your business partner's wife as your partner, and that may not be somebody you choose. You would need that money to pay her off. Ditto with your partnership agreements, and we already touched on the powers of attorney and wills and what that could happen. Remember, you don't know what you don't know. The only way to do that is to ask. These are my details, and for the next month I'm offering a free 15-minute review of your legacy plan. So whether you got properties or not, if I can help you with what you're looking for or anything, it's complimentary, and the link is there to my diary. You can book it in, and that's for the next month. So if anybody would be interested in that, more than happy. It'd be lovely to have a chat with you. And so thank you very much for that. I've now got to try and stop sharing my screen. I hope that's helpful. Has anybody got any questions that they'd like answering? And I will put the links in the chat box.
That was super interesting. I don't know if anyone's got any questions about that. No? Okay. Well, Joy's got a breakout room now anyway. I haven't even set them up yet. I was so busy listening.
That went quicker than I expected it to, but
oh,